We are live.
Right. Thank you, Ajay. Uh,
Good evening, everyone. My name is Harkiran Sehgal. I am the manager for LLM admissions at Jindal Global Law School. The topic for today's webinar is why specialize in environmental law and related subjects in collaboration with WWF. This will be an interaction with Ms. Shivanshi Gupta, Dr. Singaram Kulandeval, Advocate K. Parameshwar, and Ms. Vidhi Thukral. The moderator for the session is Ms. Monica Arabi. She is the advisor at Center for Environmental Law, WWF India. Shivanshi is a BBA LLB graduate from Symbiosis International University. She was an intern at Kocher and Company, TMT Law Practice, and Wadhwa Law Chambers. Dr. Singaram is presently working as the Chief Conservator of Forests West Bengal. He has a PhD in agriculture. He also holds an LLB from Calcutta University. Advocate K. Parmeshwar is a practicing lawyer in the Supreme Court of India with more than 20 plus years of experience. He has been appointed as amicus curiae on several environment-related matters by the Supreme Court. Ms. Vidhi Thukral completed her LLM and LLB from OP Jindal Global University. She is currently working as Senior Program Officer at Center for Environmental Law, WWF India. Prior to this, she has worked in the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Without any further ado, I would now like to request Ms. Monica Arabi to start with the topic for today's webinar, which is why specialize in environmental law and related subjects. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Harkiran. Good evening to all the participants and welcome to today's webinar where we will be interacting with few promising and some of them upcoming environmental lawyers who decided to specialize in subject of environmental law to, of course, make a huge difference to our planet. So deciding on specialization for law graduates is always a combination of aspiration, passion, and most importantly, career prospects. Because at the end of the day, that is one thing which everyone around us also asks. That what is what is your career option and what is going to happen after I specialize or after you specialize. So the questions come from not only self-questioning, but also the questions are put by our friends and family. So if you're finishing or just finishing law school or hunting down that much desired on-job training experience, either working in a law firm or maybe joining a senior counsel to practice, or working with, or even joining any of the judge's office, or taking up entry level positions in an international or national organization, or if your choice is to work with corporates, you will always have one question constantly nagging you, especially after you've finished your law. Am I equipped to handle a demanding job? Can I handle the challenges and meet expectations of my employee? And many more such questions in relation to maybe that one specialization or your interest area. Maybe you have nurtured interest over one of the law subjects while you're pursuing your law, and maybe you want to specialize in that and then think whether a master's program, whether specializing through an LLM program is good enough, or should I be doing much more? So, there are a lot of questions which law graduates, of course, face. So if you are serious about career in law and already have some legal working experience behind you, or you're a fresh law graduate, to pursue an LLM always is a right and a best decision. Now, the reason why I'm saying it's a best decision is because LLM can help you specialize in a particular field of your interest, of course, and also in case if you are trying to think about what is that subject which I have to specialize in, then attending webinars like this will open up or will bring clarity to many of your questions. So if we look at the lawyers, they're different. I mean, the lawyers after passing out from a law school, they focus on specific fields like corporate law, business law, IPR, or even environmental laws. So there are specific topics which actually need a specialized training, and all these either be it corporate law, or business law, or environmental law, unless and until you dwell deep into the subject of what exactly is there and you try to interpret it, you won't be in a position to guide yourselves towards a better, even to do better in your careers, or even practicing. If there is a specific area you choose, you can always command certain expertise on that subject, especially if you undergo this whole journey of doing an LLM and attaining a master's degree. Mainly when we speak about environmental law, which is today's webinar, and we'll focus our discussion around environment and related areas of subject. And the reason why we want to today only speak about environmental law and the related subjects is we all are aware that there are escalating threats to our natural ecosystem, biodiversity, which obviously emphasize the need to have robust environmental laws. Not only is it important, but a requirement to increase the cadre of trained environmental lawyers and experts who can take up these environmental challenges and also find solutions to these challenges by interpreting the environmental laws for the benefit and in favor of environment. This is something which is much needed today. Now, environment as a subject is inherently interdisciplinary, having numerous crossovers with different subject areas. And in order to get a good grasp over it and in related subjects, it is important to dive deeper into the study of each of these environmental laws. So exactly with this objective of increasing the cadre of environmental lawyers, um, Jindal Global Law School, OP Jindal Global University, and Center for Environmental Law, WWF India, we launched a program which is LLM in Environmental Law, Energy and Climate Change in 2019. And today, in fact, we have with us alumni from all the three batches to discuss with us about the choices they made and how they benefited from one-year LLM program. Um, Harkiran briefly introduced everyone, but let me just tell you that Dr. Singaram, one of our speakers, who is an IFS officer, is from the current batch. He's from the 2021-22 batch. Just before joining this webinar, we were having a concerned dialogue about the forest fires in West Bengal and how he is totally on field addressing, currently addressing the forest fires which are happening due to, of course, in summer months it happens in many of the states, but then it's alarmingly a growing concern over across all the forest areas. So welcome, Dr. Singaram, and thanks for accepting to be part of this discussion today. We also have Advocate K. Parmeshwar. We fondly call him KP. He is from the 2021 batch, that is the second batch of LLM. Thanks for joining us, KP, today. Vidhi, like Harkiran said, she works with WWF, but has done her law, also an LLM, from Jindal Global Law School itself. Thank you, Vidhi, for joining. We have a young lawyer, and again, Vidhi is actually the senior most out of the entire group here because she is from our first batch of LLM, 2019-2020 batch. And finally, the most, I would say, young lawyer and full of enthusiasm, Shivanshi, is from the current 2021-2022 batch. Thank you, Shivanshi, for joining. So without, much of the fancy here, I would straight get into the question for you. And my first question is for you, KP. You have more than 20 years of experience in litigation, and especially you have handled many environmental cases in past. So somewhere, you were actively practicing when you registered for this LLM program. So I would like to ask you why you thought of this LLM program and why you felt that specializing in environmental law is needed. KP.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Let me correct all of you. I have 15 years of practice and not 20 years of practice. We'll start with the correction. But yes, the pandemic afforded a lot of opportunities apart from the challenges that it posed. So one of the opportunities that came my way pleasantly came my way was the fact that a leading university in India is teaming up with a leading environmental agency in India to offer a course in environmental law. I'm a practicing lawyer in the Supreme Court for the past 15 years. So it didn't make sense for me to be doing a master's in something very academic. And I wanted it to be an eclectic mix of theory, practical, and not just any dry course. So in that sense, the environmental law program, ELECC program by Jindal and WWF provided the ideal foil to start something like this. Added to the fact that it was a regular course, it's not one of those correspondence courses, it's not a diploma course, it's a full-time LLM course. So somebody who's actually interested to what do you say, balance their work life and also start an academic pursuit, it's an ideal course, because I'm sure even today the timings are Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays whole day, Thursday, Fridays evenings, and because of that, you know well in advance that this is an ideal course which you can manage along with your professional responsibilities. So to me, that was the biggest advantage, the fact that without any compromise on quality of education, we were getting a regular LLM course delivered at our doorsteps, because we were the completely online batch. We started online. We were thinking of meeting at least before our semesters, the second semester got over, but the second wave struck. So our batch did everything online. So that way, that's point number one. Point number two, and I think this must be the attraction for everyone who wants to pursue an environmental law master's, is the fact that it is one of those areas, until you're looking to work in the corporate sector through and through, it's one of those areas where the law is changing every 6 months. One. Two, the regulatory agencies are evolving every year. It's not that there is one regulatory agency. Every 2-3 years, we see a change in the regulatory system also. We have new agencies coming in. Three, and the most important fact is that it's an ideal regulatory practice to pursue, because it's not going to be one of those areas of law which will have any kind of stagnation. It will just always evolving, always posing new challenges, therefore an ideal field. And the last part, why the combo of Jindal and WWF deadly, is because of the fact that you will get a lot of people who have actually worked on the field come and give you lectures. So this is something that Malika and Vidhi know. I've been a big fan of them in the second semesters. Almost every week we had somebody who's actually worked on the field come and tell us issues of environmental regulation. And as Malika said, because it being a very interdisciplinary subject, we had people from policy, we had people from science, we had people from statistics and economics, and somebody whom I later started working in the course of a matter in the Supreme Court, Professor Ghosh. So that entire variety of the eclectic variety, I don't think probably any other course in this country will offer. I have no doubts about that. So I think that is the biggest strength of this program. And I wish the program continues from strength to strength. So that's me.
Thank you, KP, and rightly so. You said for the second year, especially for the second batch of LLM, it has been completely virtual mode because of pandemic. But how I wish that we had physical classes, because it has a very different kind of orientation. Even the pedagogy, sometimes having the physical classes changes the whole perspective, which I'm sure a lot of resource persons also want to. And thankfully for the current batch, even though the semester one happened in virtual mode, we are back with physical classes. And, that is something good to look forward to. So Dr. Singaram, you are an IFS officer. You're working on multiple issues, and not just before deciding to do this LLM, but much before. You dedicated your life to environment conservation. So somewhere, into the thick of conservation, and all of a sudden this decision of yours to pursue an LLM. Why? And how exactly are you benefiting, and what is the difference you see from when you were, you were just a lawyer and an IFS officer doing the regular work, and now with you doing the LLM?
Yeah, thank you, Malika ji. Actually, uh, I am just perceiving the course. I am very keen to perceive the course. I have seen the topic which is given, the content which is given in the LLM course, the environmental law, which is very important for this hour, the climate change and the energy. All these things are very close to me personally as well as my professional side. See, the West Bengal state is highly devastated by the environmental impacts. If we see Sundarban is one or other way. Every year, either 2 or 3 major cyclones are hitting. And as a manager, field manager, we have to go to the field, see the people, how this is very much, concern to us. And as a field manager, as a resource person, and we have to tackle these things based on the available resources. The available resources are very limited, and whatever the legal provisions available, how to take to my fellow colleagues. There are officers under me, more than 20 officers, cadre officers under me, under my disposal, and there are more than 2,000 staffs are working on ground day in day out, which was really very much concern to me when the Amphan cyclone came. When the Amphan cyclone, I have seen that one side the lockdown was there, people cannot go, and the devastations made the every farmer, every settlement that did not under completely on water. They don't get anything to eat for the next meal. That was the situation. So we have to find out how to manage these things, resources based on the existing the climatic situations. If it is a migrations, if it is a settlement, if it is a change of management, like their livelihood, all the things we need to manage, because at the end, to protect the big cat, Royal Bengal tiger, we need to protect first of all the human being where in and around their living. Because for the social fencing, the concept of social fencing came from Bengal. That says joint forest management, from the Arabari concept. So what we are doing, we are trying to manage the local people and support them, and also rescue them from this changing climate, the vagaries of climatic effect. That is the reason which I felt that this course is very much needed. And after joining this course, I feel personally that every delivery, every content is being discussed here is very much useful. And I am also, after learning from the institution, I am also having discussion with my workshop and seminars with my staffs and officers, and trying to update them how to mitigate these measures scientifically, what is the latest technologies available, how to manage the resources in a very effective manner. This is the one way which is this course is for me is very important. And another things that regarding the energy management, that forest is one of the rich source of energy from the day immemorial. No, we have to supply firewood, we have to supply timber, we have to supply other minor forest producers from forest side. How to manage these things? We have energy management. Even there are a lot of conventional resources like coal and all, it's being mined from forest area maximum. These challenges are there. To manage these challenges very efficiently, most scientifically, this course I personally feel that is very much important. And this is the way this is the reason why I decided to do this course. And there are other challenges which is there, and we will discuss in course. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Singaram. I really wish that you become an inspiration to many IFS officers who are lawyers already, who already have a law degree, I came across many such IFS officers who are also lawyers. So it is in a way, good that we have you here to not only share your field experiences with your batchmates, but also with the resource persons, who come and take sessions during currently also, in the physical classes also. because somewhere the experience from the field is important, because that is what bridges the gap between the theory which is being taught in the classes by of course various academicians, but somewhere it is the practitioners who will ultimately tell us whether on ground how is it being implemented. So it is good that field people like you are doing and are specializing in a master's program, and I'm sure you should become an inspiration to many. So
Thank you.
going forward, Vidhi, you are someone who has right from law school always wanted to be an environmental lawyer, or you wanted to work in the environmental sector. I know this very well because Vidhi has interned with Center for Environmental Law not once but twice during her law school. And post that, we were tracking, because whosoever is intern or who interns with CEL, we keep in close touch with them just to see whether they are continuing to work on in the field of environment or not. And Vidhi has been one such person who's continuously been dedicated to the field of environment. She then went on to work with Ministry of Environment and Forest, and also with the natural gas, and there is an establishment, so she associated with that. So, Vidhi, my question to you is, after pursuing your law, and also after working with the ministries, because this particular thing of working with government is something which is definitely seen as an added advantage, because you're right at the helm of where the policy is getting made, or where the laws are getting amended, or say, I would say, even diluted. So, why did you decide to do an LLM after actively already being an environmental lawyer? And how has this specialization really helped you?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. So yes, you were right in saying that I discovered my true calling for environmental law when I interned with CEL WWF back in 2017. And from there was no looking back, as I just realized that I have to find my way out and work in the field of environmental law. I belong to the school of thought that specialization is always advantageous. So it really helps you to become that one go-to person for that area of law. It also equips you to with a skill set which helps you to understand what's been happening, how that area of law is evolving over a period of time, because you really gain in-depth knowledge. And when you are polishing on a daily basis in that particular area of law, you just tend to become more updated in that area of law than others. So you specialization in environmental energy and climate change for me was required, and I felt the need to do so, because I feel specialization helps you to stand out when you're very sure of what's your interest area, which I was when I went for this. So I did not immediately, and I took my own while, and I was exploring which law school to do it from, when to do it. So it was quite timed that way, and it didn't happen by accident. So specialization, I feel it's very advantageous. It's also interesting to get into that one area of law, to get deep dive into it and understand what's been happening. Also, particularly why environment law, energy and climate change is such a unique combination is because I feel that we have enough of corporate lawyers doing what they're doing. But for issues like environment, human wildlife conflict, green infrastructure, energy efficiency, what is the interplay of renewable energy and the energy efficiency, demands of energy security, I felt that this is such a need of the hour to understand these issues, both what's happening at the national level in the country, and what's happening globally also. This course, so once I think, I just look at the brochure and, what is being taught, it gives you an insight into what is there, and it does also deliver what is being promised at the right, at the beginning. So for me, specialization was, it wasn't just by accident that, I decided to go for LLM. It was something that I wanted to do it. And this particular specialization in these three, I would say these are all three dynamic fields which are very interconnected. There's so much happening, like, KP mentioned that there's actually the law coming up every, 6 months, or, some amendment happening, or some new agency coming up. So it's really evolving, and it's very interesting to see what's even happening in this space of law. So that's why I chose to do specialization in ELECC.
That's great, Vidhi, because learning never should stop, even though you know what has been happening in the field. But then, somewhere, like you said, equipping ourselves with the evolving areas like climate adaptation or climate change or energy laws and energy policies, which obviously are, are only going to grow in future. So, right decision there, I would say. So coming to you, Shivanshi, you are our young lawyer, like I said in the introduction. Right after your law, a lot of times, especially we who have been working in the field of environment for long, we always crib and cry about this one thing, that the young students or the young lawyers are somehow not coming to pursue a master's degree in environmental law and related subjects. And somewhere we feel that because in while in law school you don't really study environmental law in deep. So somewhere this thought that maybe the lawyers or just the the young or graduates who will pass out, maybe they don't know much about the field of environmental law, which is why there could be certain there could be certain ambiguities in terms of what can this subject offer. So coming from that thought, you were someone who didn't even pass out from law school, but already decided that you want to pursue an LLM. Of course, you got the degree, which is why you're doing an LLM. So what was your reason to choose to mainly pursue an LLM, and what is your message to those young graduates who will be passing out, why they should be selecting this specialization, which is LLM in environmental law, energy, and climate change?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. Actually, I would say that a lot has been said already, but I would like to add on to this in the way that, firstly, for me, I think relevance was very important. And when I say relevance, I need to bring this to the forum that not only domestic, but global relevance is what we're looking here. And so when I decided on doing something, I did not really want it to be something which is only peculiar to India, perhaps peculiar to my state, perhaps to my region. Nothing. It's something which I'm also talking about, which Greta is also talking about, which probably Trump also denies, but somewhere is acknowledging. So my point was, and I would also like to stress here that all these lectures that we are having in this course also during our program, there's this one course in particular that I would like to point out, which is being taught to us by Professor Kosmin. Here we are preparing a relocation strategy for people who are going to get stranded because of coastal erosion, because of calamities which are bound to happen. Now, each of those classes begin with an affirmation that perhaps it's not going to happen, but we all know that somehow at the end of the day, we are going to need these guidelines. We are going to there is going to be an urgency for that task force to be set up, for the ministries to come together and think about what is it that we're going to do. That is the global relevancy that I'm talking about. That a policy that was framed by him for Fiji is going to be as relevant as it is going to be for a city like Mumbai very soon, maybe. So relevancy for me was the first. Secondly, I would say, like Parmeshwar sir also pointed out, the interplay of the courses. So when we study environmental law, it's not only law that I'm studying right now, because very recently there was this lecture about the electronic vehicle segment and how the alternative fuel market is bringing a change in the fight against climate change and all those things. I am a commerce student and I was not supposed to know things. But at the end of the day, I knew the difference between an internal combustion and the lithium-ion battery, and how bioethanol blended petrol is different from an EV, what is better, what is not. So that kind of brings so much into the play on the plate, because when you're going back home, you're going back with a thought that, okay, it's not only law that we're doing, we're learning so much more than that. So I think both these two things, which I kind of knew before joining this program, that it's not only going to get restricted to environment alone, and therefore I decided this program. Also, while I am still a part of this course and there's still 2-3 months left, but I would like to answer a question that you asked Dr. Singaram, that how do you feel you've changed while being in this program? I would definitely want to answer this, because for me, before joining this program, a bird was a bird. I did not really understand what is happening. But after our field trip to the Keoladeo National Park and the Bharatpur Sanctuary, trust me, a bird is not is I love to identify birds now, because the passion that I've seen in you guys and the passion with which the other people were following that bird watching episode, it kind of triggered that, okay, fine. I even sent Vidhi ma'am the photos of the birds I come across. It is this that particular bird. So that's how things have changed. I've kind of become very empathetic to the things that actually matter around you in a very small way, perhaps, but it's changed me a lot in a great. So I would say that this is a wonderful program to go ahead. And for anybody who's as confused as me, as I was after completing my graduation, I would say this is one thing that you should do. Even if you're not sure about it, trust me, you're going to love it in the process. Thank you.
Thanks, Shivanshi. That, that this is clearly something which we wanted. And one of the reasons why we designed an entire 3-credit course within this LLM is implementation of laws and policies on field. Because somewhere we believe that unless and until, like I said before, unless and until we bridge this gap between what is there in those barracks and what is there, what is exactly happening on ground, and how are people and what exactly is being implemented, or how is law implemented, or how are communities understanding what law or implementation of these laws and policies are, or how are they getting affected. Like you said, you are able to identify some of the birds, or at least watching a bird with a very different lens now. That itself is somewhere our objective achieved, I would say. Thank you, Shivanshi. So going forward, KP, you're someone who have been practicing in various, even in Supreme Court. Recently, you worked on a very important case which involved trees, and I mean, of course, you should be talking more about this case. But then, when it comes to environmental litigation, you as a practicing lawyer, somewhere are you satisfied with the way the environment litigation is being dealt with today? And going forward, do you actually feel that more environmental lawyers are needed to maybe run with the flag to protect environment and to take up more cases, because the environmental challenges, of course, are only growing? So what, according to you as a practicing environmental lawyer, and in general also, you, because you do many cases, it's not like you focus only on environment, but what, as a practitioner, what is your view on these things?
Yeah, I think that's a question that assumes a lot of relevance in today's legal ecosystem. Firstly, I want to question this terminology environmental lawyer. Not because, not from the perspective that there is specialization as an environmental lawyer or not, because I think even today, people advocates pursuing environmental law are a handful. That's not how I would want the environmental law bar to develop in this country. I think environmental law is something that this should come naturally to anybody who wants to practice law. So one of the things that has to consciously happen, and I think this is for all lawyers to take, is that like they do legal aid matters for the poor, like they do legal aid matters for people who are behind bars, they must consciously take up environmental issues at their own level. It could be, I'm not saying it needs to be something that has a pan-India impact. It could be a smaller case. It could be waste management in their own cities. It could be, so what do you say? This idea that only environmental lawyers or people who like the environment must practice environmental law is not something which I would want to prescribe in the long run, because then I think it's very harmful, because then what happens is the litigation remains in the hands of very few people. And like any other field of law, there are different theories and different schools of thought in environmental law too. So what happens eventually is only those people who have access to environmental lawyering then predominantly occupy that space, and they say what's right for the country, what's not right for the country. I would want it to be much more diverse. in the sense that every lawyer ought to do some kind of environmental lawyering. That's where I see environmental lawyering as a goal. That's one. Two, on the future of environmental law, as is the case with a lot of public goods in this country, electricity, telecom, environmental law is also now bracketed as a tribunal practice, which I again feel is a very bad thing, because what happens is you are now limited to 4 or 5 benches of the National Green Tribunal across the country. And we have disempowered our high courts from actually looking into environmental issues, which to me is a very, very negative step in the larger run, in the longer run, because I think a constitutional court like a high court, which wields all the power and majesty of the law, is the ideal court in every state to be looking into environmental matters. The tribunalization of environmental law as concerns came because of concerns that environmental matters are getting stuck in the high courts, and therefore we need to have a easier way out of regulation, which according to me is not the way environmental law ideally should work. So as I said, first one, I want environmental practice to be more dispersed, more diverse. Two, one of the ways in which that can, according to me, happen is only if we empower all high courts to actively hear environmental matters, and not just 4 or 5 tribunal benches of the National Green Tribunal sitting in the country. So we have crucial environmental issues in the Northeast, but we do not have a single bench in the Northeast. So that's the second part. And the third and the most important part from a point of view of environmental rule of law is the fact that our bulk, and this is my favorite point, that the bulk of our environmental law is in delegated legislation, not in active statutes. So we have statutes which are only 8 or 9 sections, which in substance regulating the environment, and the entirety is then given to the executive to implement it in the forms of notifications, circulars, rules, regulations, etc. Now, that's a matter of concern because, as I said, every 6 months, 7 months, a change is introduced. There is hardly any parliamentary or legislative oversight. And then we have a bunch of law which is not at all static. We don't forget staticity. But I think the fact is that we do not know where we are headed as a body of environmental lawyers interested in the development of environmental law. So these are 3 factors which I think, as any lawyers, we must seriously think about when we are talking about environmental litigation in this country. That's it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, somewhere it is needed to also, understand that environmental practicing and someone practicing environmental law should obviously totally not restrict it to this field, but at the same time, there is so much evolving that one should, especially lawyers, should think of having, like, for example, how we have climate litigation in other countries. India is not actively pursuing still, but future we can obviously already guess and perceive that there would be climate litigation, understanding and taking it that because the changes are happening and it is fast changing, even though we don't want it, but then we know that the climate is fast changing. So somewhere that creativity in terms of practicing, a lawyer practicing multiple areas and focusing on multiple areas of environment is somewhere a necessity going forward. Thanks, KP, on that. So, Dr. Singaram, we like you said, even when you were talking about the challenges which you face on field, be it human wildlife conflict, be it even the corridor protection or corridor management, because necessarily you can't tell the wild animals that, okay, this is a tiger reserve, this is a national park, please be in the boundary and don't come out. You can never say that to the wild animals. And so the corridor concept that, most of these corridors which are used by wild animals should also be protected. There is the responsibility is there on, of course, the state to protect even the corridors for so that we don't lose our wildlife or we don't lose the habitat of these wild animals. So somewhere you have been actively involved in these multiple field challenges which we face, especially when we are looking at conservation. So someone who is constantly on field, what would you and what do you think about this whole balance between conservation and development. And where do you see this is actually going? I mean, are we heading in the right direction, especially when we're trying to conserve the wildlife and its habitats?
Thank you, Malika. Actually, you asked a very, very big question, and it needs a days to answer. But I try to brief. Okay, last 20 years of my learning at field, I need to brief it. Okay, but I try to make it very nutshell. Actually, as you rightly said, that conservation and development, it is actually, it's really, of course, is we can say that the railway track, both the rails are there, you have to go parallelly, because conservation is also need of the hour, and development also is very important for a progressive, country or society, or maybe locally, whatever. As we know that this Adam Smith economist said that the resources are limited. There's a constant fight in the air for the resources. Maybe 17th century statement, but it's still applicable maybe centuries to come as well. And what happened? I just brief you some of the glaring examples of South Bengal story. South Bengal, we have the elephant corridor. There, the Mayzona elephant reserve is there, and the elephant used to come from Dalma Hills. I'm just taking a small example. Okay, Dalma Hills. Earlier in 1980s, the elephant used to come for stay for few maybe few weeks. Later 1990s, and the elephant started coming 3 months. Now, if you see, though after last 10-15 years, what happening, the elephant starts staying in Bengal, because there is a constant mining and a lot of blasting happening at the Dolma Hills. Dolma Hills in Jharkhand side, and the elephants are not having comfort zone, not finding that that particular habitat is no more useful for that. So it is not going back, and it's not staying there. And the elephants started completely staying back in Bengal. By this process, what happened? People are not accustomed to face these type of things, because this forest area at southern part of Bengal is like a mosaic. If you see the just after 15-20 minutes of travel, you see the agricultural land. And every half an hour, if you travel by road, by whatever, maybe you will encounter agriculture and forest, agriculture and forest. When the elephant it comes out, just for the huge animal, you know very well that it needs a huge demand of energy for food demands, caloric demand. When it comes out, it has to go and have the crop right. And now, because of the modern agriculture practices, lots of cropping pattern and cropping, variety of crops cultivation, it has changed. So the cropping area, when the animal goes, and the people used to try to save their livelihood. Otherwise, they have to lose their own things for the complete year. So they will try to find out how to react to that animal. The forest department is trying their best to convince them through so many way of managements, like establishing a lot of social fencing, this people and forest concept, tracking them inside the management. We are also making them part of our management, and still we are unable to achieve, because as we know that human beings are thinking that everything's for their own benefit. Everything the creation is for their own happiness. But this won't go. This won't go a long time. But currently, what we are facing in South Bengal, human-animal conflict. Human-animal conflict, which I was telling, that forest terrain is not only in Bengal, so many states as well in India. The forest day by day is coming down, and the activities in and around forest become very much. The development is going up very faster, and the animals unable to breathe out, they are unable to go out. And when it goes, it having a lot of retaliation, attack from the side of fringe population. That is a huge challenge for the animal. And this issue in Sundarban also, which we have seen, tiger. Because of this climatic change, the human beings are also trying to move out. They are also trying to move out to the new places, because certain islands, out of 102 plus islands in Sundarban, some islands are not suitable for the human being to stay, because of this climatic changes, lot of inundation happening. The people are keep on moving. not only this, is the animals also keep on moving. And the earlier there are few ranges the tiger used to stay. But now what happening after this Amphan cyclone, after this consequence of 2-3 cyclones like your cyclone, Fani and Bulbul, the inundation has got increased, and there is no fresh water to the animal to drink. So this way animals have started moving to from traditional jurisdiction to non-jurisdiction jurisdiction. Once the animal moves out of this the previous jurisdiction, the animal habituated to go outside this area where the human settlements are there. In South Bengal, the population density, particularly Sundarban area, human population density is huge. It is 1200 plus per square kilometer. It's even more than that. What I'm doing. So, and the human settlement and the mangrove forest is hardly a small creeks to cross. Just hardly a creeks to cross. Once the animal crosses the creek, automatically it goes to the village area. Village area had a lot of cattle are there, the human being, and they don't have any fencing, nothing is there. So the staying become great issue. Once the animal goes, that the big cat is always huge, huge importance in national level. So we have to, the manager, the field officer, the field staff has to be on to. It's a really managing this type of terrain, corridor is a very, very daunting task. Until unless we create a huge awareness and also try to, economically also try to help the local poor people like fringe population and joint forest management committee, this issue become unsettled for the long time.
Right,
So
right.
another thing,
Because a lot of times it is about how community is also part of these conservation measures which you are taking on field, because unless and until the community is living with the wildlife, and also because the sharing of habitat is always has been traditionally, and I guess we need to acknowledge that part. Thank you, Dr. Singaram. I'm sure you can speak for the whole day about this particular question about whether there is a balance between conservation and development. The answer would obviously be that no, it is not. But then there are reasons for why we are saying that there is no balance. So thank you for that. Maybe in the next questions we will. So the participants who are attending, you can leave your questions in the chat box, and we will take up your questions after we have spoken to all the speakers on certain set discussion points which we wanted to ask them. So going forward, Vidhi, I just you've worked with ministry, and you've also been associated. You were associated with certain policy making as well in the government, and you've closely seen. Now, looking at the climate negotiations which happen, or and the Indian delegation when it goes. So recently, the IPCC report, which very clearly says that there is lot happening in terms of making of laws or policies to mainly towards mitigation. So somewhere energy efficiency is what everyone is talking about, and there is a strong feeling that energy efficiency going forward needs to be handled and managed really well. So what according to you is that specific area of climate, mainly the climate governance bit and the energy efficiency bit is sufficiently being done? You feel that we are on the right track when it comes to climate governance?
So yes, in the like there's definitely an uprise and a lot of new changes coming in the field of the policies. So we also have the new plastic waste management rules. We also have the biomedical waste rules, the e-waste rules, which also in a way helps to manage the climate change aspects, of course, in its own ways. Like you mentioned, the energy resource, the National Resource Efficiency Plan, which also in 2019 Ministry launched a draft policy, which formally introduces circular economy in our regulatory landscape. It also sets up an authority which would be overseeing in the interministerial level as to how the resources are managed, and there also comes these rules. So it's an interministerial level authority which would be set up with this policy. Also in 2020, in 2020 in December, Ministry also launched interministerial committee for the implementation of Paris Agreement, which is also there. In terms of air pollution, we have the National Clean Air Program. Also, we have a recent commission on air quality management. So there's a lot of stuff happening in this legal landscape. In terms of the climate change litigation, I feel, like we had Ridhima Pandey's case, which in 2019 NGT dismissed, saying that the policies which exist in India do reflect the international agreements, such as what is there in the Paris Agreement. The matter is now before the Supreme Court and is sub judice. So there's a lot happening. It's evolving. It's quite dynamic. It's quite active, I would say. So in terms of, we do not have a specific climate change legislature with us, but we do have all these laws, ancillary, which are interconnected and which, say like air pollution, we have the commission on the air quality. For the resource efficiency, something is there. So we have a lot which is emanating from it. So if not a specific law, but I feel the existing laws, if implemented well and to its full capacity, I think we have enough on the platter to, to work towards, and then probably we'll be able to achieve the targets that we have set for ourselves.
Right. So it's all about what will be done, especially going forward, of understanding and acknowledging that the climate is changing and how these policies and laws will be implemented on ground. I guess that is what all the policymakers will also be keenly looking at. So going forward on the same thing, Shivanshi, especially when we look at these issues, be it adapting to climate, or also addressing the energy efficiency, or the demand versus supply, which is especially in the energy sector. That's what we talk about. So do you think that there is a disparity in how urban and how rural is actually responding to these demands of energy? And somewhere, India of course faces a challenge where many of the villages are not even electrified, right? We do not have access to electricity. So as a lawyer, and also someone who understands the climate governance and how it is being implemented, what according to you needs to be done, and especially how can this the divide between urban and rural, if at all it is there according to you, how can that be addressed?
Ma'am, in my opinion, the divide that you've just talked about, the energy divide between the urban and the rural India, if we were to put it in a very simple term, I would say that as a person belonging to urban India, we are moving towards something which is called as a prosumer. We are now at a stage where we are not only consuming electricity, we're also producing it, we are selling it. But rural India somehow is still stuck at a stage where we are giving them the opportunity on a daily basis to kind of go back to the time where they did not have electricity at all. That means while we are exercising a right to electricity, which Ministry of Power gave to us by their notification in 2020, rural India is somehow still stuck in a phase where they still have the option of choosing of not getting the electricity and going back to the times of those dark old days, simply because there are certain structural defects, there's certain structural technical defects that are still prevalent in our electrical regulatory system or the regulatory landscape, which need to be addressed. So whatever we've learned so far under the Electricity Act, also during a course, this thing also, we kind of studied the factors that make them, which compel them to not to get electricity. Firstly, we have this entire feeder separation issue, which has been in this scenario for a very long time now, that a lot of energy in the rural India goes in the name of agriculture, gets used up in the name of agriculture, leaving very little behind for the rural households with the basic amenities that needs to be addressed also. Secondly, we also have a lack of the fact that there's a lack of regular income, the affordability issues come into picture, and all those things together kind of makes rural India behind as to what it should have been. Now, with respect to the electrification point, theoretically 99.7% villages are electrified 100%. But in order to elaborate on this context also, that only when, like, for the definition per se means that if 10% of the village is electrified, including the public utility, we mean that 100% village is electrified. So in that sense, yes, we have 99.7 electrification, but we all know that a lot of villages are going in darkness almost on a daily basis. So when we come to the solution for these, for the electricity crisis in rural India, I would say that renewable energy is is the way forward, especially because even before renewable energy became a prominent player in the market, the microgrids, the nanogrids were what was responsible for providing electricity to the rural areas, to those areas which were not possible through the national grid. And our Electricity Act 2003 itself, under Section 4, has kind of mandated the central government to come out with national policy on these standalone systems that can cater to the specific demands of the rural India. So per se, I think renewable energy is one of those. Why? Because national grids, because these microgrids are able to give you power of less than a 10 kilowatt thing also, using biomass energy, using hydel energy, using solar energy. And these peculiar demands of rural India can only be fulfilled if we harness renewable sources of energy. And I think government is also trying really hard. So for example, we have PM Kusum, which is laying stress very hardly on the solarization of the off-grid pumps, on making use of the land which is currently vacant, so that they can use those lands, put up the solar grids, generate electricity, sell it to the people, sell it to the discoms, which are also in dearth of financial help. They are in dearth of financial help also. So all these recent steps of solarization of the feeder as well, these things kind of harness renewable energy very well, and these local level solutions is the way forward in addressing the need and in addressing the vision of 100% electrification of rural India in strict sense, 100% electrification. Thank you.
Yeah, rightly so. I guess, it's always said that the people who do not have access to something are those who will also come up with the best solutions. And we see that in rural areas, the demand, and especially if someone wants to give them, or put solar panels and give electrification, or looking at alternative, it is, and we've been working on those in different landscapes we work in, and we see that the demand for people, especially the communities, mainly say that give us the street lights. We don't want you to individually give power to the homes, but then the street lights, or make sure that the schools have lighting, enough lighting. And the best demand which comes from the communities is, we want a mobile charging station because at the end of the day, everyone wants to stay connected to what is happening in the world, because they want to see news, they want to have us have some form of entertainment, even though they do not have a regular electricity. But yeah, so somewhere we need to take in all these factors. Thanks, Shivanshi. So Vidhi, on there was a question with regards to how do I specialize. We did speak about how to choose or when to choose the specialization. But in case if someone here wants to specialize in LLM, environmental law, energy, and climate change, how do they go about?
So I believe this question is with respect to how do they sign up for the course.
Yes.
The course usually starts, the academic year starts from July and August onwards. Right now, the admission window is open. And for that, there are certain formalities in terms of one who's interested has to give the GSAT exam, LSAT or GSAT, and then they can just sign up for the course. There's a selection committee which will then, they screen the applications, and the course starts in August, and it's a one-year program. So it's divided into 2 semesters. The fall semester, which will start from August, which will go on till November. And then we have the spring semester, which starts from February and goes on till May. So So this is the broad structure of the course, and the classes, like how KP mentioned in the beginning of the course, is the classes are on Thursday, Friday evenings, and Saturday the whole day. So so if somebody's working or practicing, can balance it if they want to. So that's how they can sign up for the course. Also, we have our admissions team with us also who have joined. So they will also share the link for the brochure, which is for the upcoming academic year. So I'll request the JJU admission team to just put the brochure here, and one can just browse through what are subjects and which all faculty are there.
Right. Thanks, Vidhi. So, like Vidhi said, the detailed curriculum about what is there in each of the subject, and how each of the subject is going to be dealt with, and what are the subtopics which will be dealt under each of these subjects is what the brochure very clearly lists. In fact, for the upcoming batch, and something which the earlier batches did not have, we have added a subject. It's in fact a 4-credit core course, which is on environmental clinics alone. So exactly, I can see the alumni already raising their eyebrows on this. But yes, because we are also learning from the experiences and taking the feedback from the various various our students, and we also want this course to evolve, and which is why this environmental clinic as a specialized course, so that students get an opportunity to also understand the domestic laws, and also try to implement it domestically by understanding what is happening on field, and try to find solutions by themselves, be it doing surveys, or be it going and interviewing people, or speaking to the policy makers, especially on ground governance structure, understanding how the Panchayati Raj system works, or understanding what role Gram Sabhas have to play in the local governance. So this is something which the environmental clinic course will offer for the upcoming batches. Quite a lot of changes we are trying to bring in the curriculum. Again, going by the feedback which is given by our alumni, which we very fondly, we are quite fond of all of them, and we try to always learn from what they tell us. So KP, you are again, you have already said that you did express that somewhere environment should not be restricted only to the tribunals, or maybe so what according to you, so especially if someone wants to, and those who are already practicing lawyers, if they have to choose a master's program, which one would you suggest? If at all they want to choose an LLM or have to do an LLM, first of all, tell us whether they should do an LLM or not. And if at all they should do, what LLM they should be choosing?
I think in India, we don't lay much emphasis on continuing legal education, which I think must happen irrespective of the field you are specializing or the field you like, whether it's criminal law, civil law, corporate law, anything. I think we lack sustained focus, or perhaps even minimal focus on continuing legal education. So, and my eyebrows lit up, my eyes lit up when I heard about clinical courses, because I think that's the way forward with at least some courses like regulatory and environmental fields, because there is only so much you can do in a classroom. So if people actually want to specialize in regulatory areas, which is what practicing lawyers would ideally want to do, because that's where their interests lie, and that would professionally add some bonus points for them too, then the only way is to structure courses like we do in general, in the sense you can't be a standalone academic institution only depending on classroom lectures to do. And when I use the term regulatory, I use environment with it to subsumed within this regulatory language. So I think the way one would want to choose a specialization is to understand if you're a practicing lawyer after 3-4 years of practice, then take a call, because then you know where your interests lie. Two, opt for a course that gives you the right mix of both theoretical and practical lessons, which is what I think would be ideal. 4, it's not sufficient to just be there, do a course. I think the more involved you are in the course, the more you read up, the more you try to interact. And I think that's the only way you can pick up specialization once you have started practice. And if you want to continue academic interest, I think that's very important.
Right. So, Dr. Singaram, you have, of course, there are, endless challenges on field. You, someone as in, already working in forest, how would you recommend this course for not just IFS officers, but for that matter, any bureaucrat working in the field of environment? Do you feel that it is needed that they specialize? I mean, somewhere this academic approach towards understanding the issues, will it help the bureaucrats or even corporate lawyers, or even those who are working in any field of law? Do you think a course like this, an LLM program in environmental law, energy and climate change, will this help anyone in in maybe making their job easier by pursuing a specialization?
It's a wonderful question. Actually, it's a practical question and wonderful question. And I feel that every field resource manager, maybe bureaucrats, or maybe a technical person, maybe even scientists who are dealing with the nature and environment, they should have this type of course. Because actually, after about 9 months of my observation here, my learning from this LLM course, really I feel very much enriched, theoretically, and also I applied so much things practical at the field level. Of course, it's not possible at the grassroots level. The staffs posted at the nook and corner to come to the course and do the have the course, because it's a bit of time and money is involved. But at the officer level, those who are posted at the important locations like tiger reserves and all the critical management areas, environmentally sensitive locations, this type of courses really helps a lot. Why? To take a decision for it, maybe land conversion, and it may be for corridor management, maybe for its resource sharing, all the things you need to have updated knowledge. What KP sir was telling, that the course is the content, the environment management is itself changing day and day, monthly and day wise. So once if you are really updated what is going around you regarding the environmental issues, it is very easy to take a decision, because this nature and environment is not owned to a single person. When as a field manager, when a resource manager, when you take a decision, you should take a decision very comprehensively and judiciously, so that it will not harm the decision maker, it should harm the nature, the resources, and everything should be more scientifically. That reason, what I believe, environment, of course, officers posted in the field of environment and forest, they must have this type of exposures. If it is not at the name of LLM, at least this basic knowledge, what it is going in and around, must be known to everyone. And also at the apex level, when officers at the decision making level, maybe policy level, like after 20-22 years, like me, at the level just I entered, and this type of course certainly very much helpful, because lot many things I learned. Though I have the practical knowledge, but that the practical knowledge, what I am having is completely with the maximum of with Bengal oriented. Bengal, maybe Sundarban, maybe Baksa, maybe South Bengal. But if I have exposure pan India and globally, it will be so helpful. I'll be updated contemporary time. That is very important. I personally feel every forest officers and the posted at the critical places, they must have this knowledge. This sort of my personal feeling, and I'm really happy what I'm learning, because this WWF and also this General Global Law School also. The way the course structure is made, it is really very useful for forest officer. And also, of course, you are telling that based on the need, things will change year by year. And I feel welcome to see these things. And also, I will not go, though I will complete the course maybe after 2 months. I will still continuing with these institutions for learning of knowledge based on the time demand. That's what I feel. Thank you.
Definitely, Dr. Singaram. In fact, people like how KP was there to take the sessions. Similarly, we would want also all the experience, which you have gained. Everyone to come back to the students and speak, because that is the alumni contribution which one can make. And like I said, we're a bunch of only few environmental lawyers, and I guess we should all stay connected, because somehow the solution can then be approached in a combined and a together manner. So Shivanshi, I just want to ask you this, wherein as a graduate, one looks at just specializing in one subject. Sometimes that itself becomes quite rigorous. But here is an LLM program which actually gives you an orientation to three subjects, which is environmental law, of course, in depth going into the international and national environmental laws. Then we have climate change. Actually, even though we say climate change, it's more about the climate adaptation, because that's what we have incorporated in the curriculum. Then on top of that, we also have energy law. So is the LLM program rigorous? What are your thoughts? I mean, as someone who is currently pursuing Sorry, I think it was my network. I dropped out. So Shivanshi, did you hear my question? Did I complete my question?
To the extent that is this program rigorous?
Right. I had actually added one more thing, saying that, somewhere, of course, we know that it is rigorous. That'll be your answer. But then, do you think that having these three specializations in one offered as one LLM program, is it will the student be in an advantageous position, or it's not such an advantageous position? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Ma'am, firstly, it is not that a rigorous program. Because why? Because we are attending the classes now. Because this is the first batch which is attending the offline classes. So we do come on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. But it's a fun-filled session basically. So we do not really understand when the time goes by. Having said that, I do believe that the three specific environmental law, climate change, and energy law per se, these are so interdependent, and in the sense that if we do not follow the other two, one standalone will not make sense. And if we have this privilege of following all the three in a very structured format in the way that it is presented to us in this current program, I think it also helps us in making the decision as to what we are going to follow in the future. So within a batch itself, we have so many. So the 12 of us, the 11 of us, we know what exactly we are going to follow in the future. There's few who are passionate about energy law. There are few who are passionate about Wildlife Protection Act, and then the other ancillary stuff. So I think the three options that are given to us kind of help us to determine what it is we want to do next. At the same time, also kind of help us get the taste of all the three things, which I feel are totally dependent. You cannot really isolate climate change from the biodiversity loss, from the forest loss, from the other things that are happening at the domestic level. So reading them all together is kind of a cherry on the cake. I think it's wonderful to have all the three given to us in such a structured format. So I think it's a good thing.
Right. So KP, I would somewhere wanted to ask you this even when you were a student, and now that you are also coming as a resource person, an LLM program like this, especially with three specializations and somewhere, because we know that they're all interconnected. Um, you feel that these are whatever you learn in such master's program, I mean, can be directly implemented or can be directly bring to whichever career they are in, not just practicing, but then, if suppose, like for example, your class, you had classmates who were working with corporates, right? And you also had someone who wanted to give international, even the judicial exams, they wanted to register for the bar and practice in other countries. So do you think this course will equip each one of those who are who are wanting to pursue different career paths?
Yeah, I think definitely. I'll just say some things about the appendix courses. As I said, I used to think they were appendix courses to the environmental law program, and then I realized how different climate change law is from environmental law. So the combination, frankly, I don't think 1 year is enough to do all three. We are packing a great deal of stuff into 2 semesters, but it's a wonderful package only because I think it makes you realize the interdependability of these subjects. The moment I was a person who came in only with a very limited notion of environmental law, of that being a domestic environmental regulatory framework. Although I had a fair idea of the international conventions, etc., from a practitioner's view, those were all on the books, nothing to be applied when we were in court. But what changed my perspective was the fact that energy law could be tagged with environmental law, and we could achieve certain kind of synergies even while you are practicing energy law. So I have done pure electricity matters, I have done pure environmental matters. Now I can start thinking about how to relate those two. So that's one definite advantage this course gets. Second, as you mentioned, some of my classmates have now gone into, specifically one of them has definitely gone into the policy making field, where she is really exploring energy policy and climate change policy. There is another who heads the who heads the legal department of a huge corporate concern. She's also exploring those linkages between energy law, corporate governance structures, etc., etc. So I think not just from the practitioner's perspective, I think this course has a lot to offer to just about everyone. Dr. Kulendavil says that if the course makes sense for a chief conservator of forests after 19 years in the field, then I'm sure that the course makes sense for just about everyone who wants to do it. So I think there's definitely something in it for everyone. There's definitely something in it for everyone. I have never seen an energy law course structured in India in this manner. So kudos to that. Just for that, forget environmental law, forget climate change. The way the energy law course is structured here, which is a mix of policy and the regulatory framework, I think that's a great part of the course.
Right. Thanks, KP, on that. And coming from for someone who has already pursued this course, which is why such alumni interactions are important, because at the end of the day, it's we who have designed the course and are implementing the course, and also taking feedback from both our resource persons and our lawyers. it is for us. It's something. It's a process. It's an ongoing process, and it's something dynamic. When we started this course, we knew that we have to adapt to the changes, and we also knew that we have to incorporate this evolving subject in some or the other way, because at the end of the day, for practicing lawyers, or lawyers who would get into or choose any career path for that matter, if they don't get updated in terms of what is happening in these sectors, then they lose the lose the race, which is exactly what each one of you have said. It's constantly changing, and somewhere we want that that protection and conservation to actually happen through the interpretation, through the subject, and in the right channel. So Vidhi, I would maybe ask this final question to you, followed by, I would want each of you to comment on one question which I will ask. But Vidhi, before that, you pursued this program. You're currently working with WWF, and you're dealing with many lawyers from diverse backgrounds. So what is your take on the diversity which we have in the batch, and how is this diversity helping us as course designers, and what is that we are learning in the process?
Yes, I agree. Course, the batches are so diverse. So from somebody who's a fresher, like in this ongoing batch, we have Shivanshi. Then we have people with mid-range of experience, 3 to 5 years of experience. Then of course we have Dr. Singaram, we have KP. With people more than 10 years, 15 years of experience, 20 years of experience. So what really then reflects in the classroom is through discussion, because then there would be questions from a fresher, from somebody who's started to work, trying to make sense of how things are implemented in the practical world, and somebody who has experience and has seen how the law works, and will have a nuanced way of looking at it. So the discussions become very rich when there's a diversity in the batch, which is there, from all the three batches, right from the first batch, from my batch, where there was a diversity in that, because we all were having different ranges of experience. In the last batch also we had a lot of diversity. In this current batch also, this so much of experience, somebody coming from like they have interest in energy law, so there's somebody from that experience coming and joining and then adding on to the discussions. Also the classes are such that a lot of emphasis is laid on the interaction and the discussions, so which is an integral part. So I feel, and also when there's so much of diversity, taking on to as to what is liked by whom, and to what extent they are able to what is that they want to see in the program, when it comes from all these three ranges, which is somebody fresher with a mid-range experience and with a with a rich experience, it just also adds on, and we do consider their feedback, and we kind of weave it and try to implement it in the upcoming semesters. Like for the next academic year, like you mentioned, we're coming up with a very specific environment clinic, which is the 4 credits. So it's going to be very, I'm sure, very rigorous as well. So that's how the course is evolving. And even in terms of the faculty and even the resource persons, I think we have always experimented. I felt experimented to the extent that like bringing new insights into the course. So the faculty also is we have special lectures for a few topics. And for the special lectures, we do make a sincere effort in identifying who would be the expert person to be able to deliver on for that particular topic. So, and that doesn't stay. It's not that what was there in the first year is going to be there. It's nothing is set in stone. So we do have that space and that room to evolve and consider what's happening, what needs to be adapted. So I feel the diversity really adds on to the discussions, and also helps to also take the course further in its evolution, like it's happening. So yes.
Right. So all those people who prospective students and maybe parents who want to understand about the specialization, The reason why we have those who have pursued this course speaking is because this is the this is a progress report kind of a thing for institutions like WWF India and Jindal Global Law School, because at the end of the day, if we have alumni who are doing very well in their respective careers, that means we have achieved the objective which we with which we started or launched the program. So to conclude, I would want each of my speakers here to tell us in short that why they should specialize in environmental law and related subjects. Why is this the right time to mainly pursue this specialization? We'll start with Shivanshi.
I think I've already like convinced people enough, but still I would say that if not this, then what? And if not now, then when? And if not you, then who? That's it.
Well said, Shivanshi. KP.
We are seeing the largest global convergence on environment, health, technology. And this convergence can take us either way if we are not careful. Either we go backwards from here or we go ahead. Conservation, we go ahead. To me, this is the most interesting aspect, environment, health, technology. If we are not able to crack this as lawyers, as people who are interested in regulation, God save us.
Thanks, KP. Dr. Singaram.
Yeah, actually, today the greatest challenge in front of the humanity is the climate change and the energy need. This course is having both the content, both the topic to discuss, and is being discussed in a well-organized manner. So what I personally feel as a resource manager, natural manager, this course must be there with the disposal of each and every officers, at least at the level of in the policy making. And also those who are legally in practicing, and also those who are at the field and decision making. Thank you.
Right, Dr. Singaram. Thank you. Vidhi, your final words.
I think it's very hard to not acknowledge that the impact of climate change which we are facing, the rising temperature. I think all of us felt that rise in heat in the month of March, April itself. We have hailstorms sometimes in summers, and so we had a lot of rain in this winters that has just gone by. So a lot is happening in terms of excess of rainfall. So it's just that it's a need of the hour. We can't turn our eyes blind to what's happening, even though somebody you're not interested in environment law, but you can't not acknowledge the fact that we are all reeling under the impact of the climate change and the rise in temperature, which is just very very difficult to, I think, not acknowledge it. So and to deal with these issues, like I said, so there has to be a certain set of people dealing with these issues, and if you want to develop that skill set where you want to contribute and also give back to the society, I think that could be one of the primary reason to sign up for the course. If you want to do something, if it really bothers you to see that why is it this happening, if that curiosity kind of triggers you to make to take that action to contribute, then I feel this course is there, and you have a lot of options after this course. So not just practice, you can be a policy maker, you can even teach, you can work as in-house counsel, and from this year onwards we have ESGs which are mandatory for a certain section of companies from 2022 to 23 financial year. So even if you are working in a company and with ESGs on rise, I think even there you can contribute in the element of the environment component of ESGs. So I would say it's a need of the hour. It's spreading everywhere, and LLM just enhances your career options. Like how after law, if we feel that we have so many options, I think LLM just adds on to it, but in a more specialized and advanced way.
Right. Thank you, Vidhi. Thanks to all my speakers, and like everyone has pointed out, If not now, when? We have learned many lessons from pandemic. And one thing, especially being an environmentalist, or working for environment, we've learned that we cannot, or we can no longer do things in a conventional manner. We have to change the way we work. We have to you also understand nature from a very different lens, and that is something which is needed. And like like all the speakers said, it is the awareness which is going to bring in that change. It is we who have to finally find the solutions for nature. And ultimately, we all need to acknowledge the fact that we have only one planet living. Just today, someone sent me a message, and they just guessed, or from the research which is available, as to how each of the planets smells. It was quite, I mean, it was very different perspective, because the scientists tried to answer it from the angle of that how is each planet smelling. Can you even bear that smell, especially if you have to live on that planet? And believe me, the way each of these planets smell, and if the smell has to relate to what we know already, was pathetic. You can't even imagine living on any of those planets. So we have only one planet living, and I guess it's high time we acknowledge that nature has given us a lot. It is time to somewhere not give back, but at least recognize that importance, and recognize the value of nature and our environment, and protect the environment in the manner we can, in the best possible way ever. So thank you. Thank you, KP. Thank you, Dr. Singaram. Thank you, Shivanshi and Vidhi, for joining today. And we wish you the very best for Dr. Singaram and Shivanshi, best for the coming up assignments and submissions. And KP, for all the cases you are fighting. We wish to be there for you, and we are there for you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.